We've just found out 100 shareholders have lost every single penny they invested in my business. This was not a video I was hoping to have to make at all, let alone so soon after all of the stuff I put online this week. So if you've been following my channel, you know that we've put up a load of videos this week because a £30 million business that I built over 10 years was stolen by two directors committing extensive fraud. They drove the company into administration, and we found out about the administration on the 12th of June. We have been putting together evidence packs, working with lawyers, working with other administrators, trying to get the company out of administration. Unfortunately, late last night, one of the individuals speaking to the administrators got them to release that actually on the day the company had been put into administration, it had been sold, or rather the assets of the company, e.g. the website, etc., had been sold to a brand new Guernsey-based company. What it turns out the directors had been doing is, of course, when this all started, they'd massively inflated their own salaries and salaries of the staff to help deplete the cash flow of the company. Whilst talking to the shareholders saying we're going to IPO, company's doing fantastically, they were taking out lots and lots of loans and driving the company into debt. At the same time, they'd been disputing the shareholding, because of course I was the majority shareholder by a long time. So when this started, the director involved in this disputed the shareholding and said we're going to ratify it in court. Never ratified it in court, which is a breach of his fiduciary duties. In fact, it's a breach of all the directors' fiduciary duties. So what they then continued doing was driving the company into more and more debt simply by paying themselves more and more money and wasting it on frivolous things. The company, of course, declined at the same time because you were wasting money. It wasn't going into the business. Behind the scenes, it appears that the directors had been dealing with some of the smaller Guernsey shareholders and had arranged for a pre-pack sale, which is a highly dodgy, illegal, or technically illegal venture. What they had arranged was that they were going to run the company into debt, which means it obviously couldn't pay its debts, immediately put into administration. As soon as it was in administration, then the shareholders had no say over what would happen with the company. Even if the shareholders did want to say something about the company, remember this guy had refused to ratify the shareholding, and when asked to call a vote, he had refused to call a vote based on the fact that the shareholding hadn't been ratified. So the shareholding had been in dispute for a year and a half when he was ordered by a court in February the previous year to have it done within 30 days. So they drove it into administration. They told the administrators that there was a company ready to buy the assets. We think it probably sold for about £1. We'll find out later this week, apparently. But what it means is that with this pre-pack deal in place, all of the shareholders have lost every single penny. The company can never be recovered. The platform can never be recovered, which means the likelihood of the platform going anywhere is very, very low. I mean, the one plus side here is that actually selling the company to another company or selling it doesn't actually solve the company's intrinsic problems, in that the staff in that company haven't got a clue what they're doing, which is largely why the traffic has collapsed anyway. So that will be a bit of karma, hopefully. But what's the saddest thing about this is that these weren't institutional investors that were destroyed. This is 100 people who lived in a small town in Wimborne and a couple of other small towns around the country. And they invested somewhere between £500 and £2,000 on average each into the company over a 10-year period. Their investments were worth hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds at the company's valuation last year, and which are life-changing sums for these people. These directors have defrauded them and stolen their investments off them by not following any laws. The judicial system in this country is a joke. These directors should have been struck off a long, long time ago. We're now working with fraud experts in Guernsey. I've got a meeting with them tomorrow. And of course, the administrators actually have a huge amount of evidence about the demise of the company. What we're really hoping is that at the very least we can strike off the directors. And hopefully at some point in the future we'll prosecute them. There is no statute of limitations on breach of fiduciary duties by fraud, which is something to bear in mind. So whilst it's not something we're going to do right now, we can go after the directors at any point in the future, and we shall do so. After all the excitement over the last couple of weeks, I'm sorry that this has not been the outcome any of us have wanted. But I think it's important, whether a story ends positively or negatively, that it is aired, particularly when it involves something like this, where extensive fraud is involved. I've sent all the evidence off to the Daily Mail. Who knows, it may get published, we shall see. But remember, look up Videscape Limited, look up the directors, and when you look at those directors, if you're ever involved or ever come across them, make sure you do not go anywhere near them. They will destroy your company and they will steal it from under you, and you will lose everything.